Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be making this crochet jewelry holder. In this guide, I'll show you not only how to make and measure the size of the panel, but also how to add these extra accessories such as the necklace holder and the pockets. I'm also going to show you how to add these cute bows and hang it up when it's done. Remember, this piece will be extremely sturdy, so it will be able to hold a ton of jewelry and hang up on a wall nicely. With that being said, let's get right into it. The materials that you'll need for today's project is less than 100 grams of 3 different wave 4 yarns, as well as a 5mm hook, a darning needle, and a pair of scissors. I also post this pattern up on my Instagram, but if you would just like to look at the steps in the video, they will be listed here too. I just like to give both options for my viewers. With that being said, we'll start step 1 with the secondary color yarn and making a slip knot. If you've never made a slip knot before, you'll simply wrap it around your fingers the way I do here, pull your yarn through itself until it creates this tiny little knot like so. Once you're done with that, you'll want to take your hook, put it through, and then pull taut on the bottom. From there, you're just going to chain 41 times and then turn your work over. The 41 is to make up for the one that we're going to have left over before we start step 3, which is half double crocheting all the way across your row. So just as I said before, you're going to skip that last chain that you made and begin your half double crochets in the one afterwards. To do so, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over once more and pull through until there's 3 loops on your hook, then yarn over once more and pull through all 3. And you're going to continue that all the way down until you are at the very end. You'll see that last stitch right before where your slip knot was made. Make your final half double crochet and you should have 40 total in that line, which I recommend counting. Once you're done, you are going to move on to a color switch, which is where you cut your yarn and then take whatever color you'll be using next. This will be your main color for the piece, and then making what is basically a slip stitch through that last stitch you made. So once you're done with that, you're going to want to adjust your yarn the same way I'm doing in the video, and then chaining once before turning your work over. Once it's turned over, you'll chain once more, and then pull those yarn tails taut once again to make sure that everything is even. You're then just going to flip the piece around so we can weave in the ends and make 8 double crochets. And you simply weave in your ends here by looping over the yarn tails, so you're basically shoving them in between where your hook is and the yarn itself. And then to make a double crochet, it is the same as a half double, but the last step of pulling through 3, you'll now pull through 2 and then pull through 2 again. For step 6, you're going to be double crocheting into the 3rd and 4th stitches that I'm pointing out here. That is your first step that we'll do before going back into the 1st and 2nd to make 2 back post double crochets. So very simply, start on that 3rd and just make a simple double crochet. Once you're done with that, you'll have this little triangle shape, and we'll make 1 more double crochet afterwards. This basically is the foundation for your cable. To make the actual loops of the cable, we're doing these back post double crochets. So simply you'll yarn over, go behind those 2 double crochets you just made, and then through the front of that first stitch that I pointed out earlier. The rest of this is done just like a normal double crochet, where you'll yarn over, push through, and then you'll have 3 loops on your hook like so. You'll want to yarn over and pull through 2, then yarn over and pull through 2 more, the same way you make a normal double crochet. You're then going to repeat that step into the 2nd stitch until you have the full effect of the bottom of your cable done. Again, it should look like those 2 double crochets on the left are going over the 2 double crochets on the right to make the like stitching over part of the cable. Here's a little zoom in of what you should be looking at when you're done. From there for step 8, you're just going to double crochet 16 more times until we repeat another set of cables, as well as 8 more double crochets. Make these the exact same way you did before, it's just the inverse of how we started the row this time. Once it's done, it'll look like this with very clear segments of where the cables are. For step 10, you're going to want to chain twice and then repeat that last row 15 total times to build the height of the panel. I'm also going to show you how to make those cables one more time now that we can clearly see the 4 stitches that we're going into. You'll once again start by going into the 3rd stitch of that last row, so you make your double crochet right in here to form that little triangle shape like before. You'll then go into the 4th stitch doing the same thing, and once again we'll need to create those back post double crochets into the 1st and 2nd stitches there and there. So yarn over, go behind, and then go through the front to push through. Make your double crochet the same way you would normally, with those 3 loops on the hook becoming 2, and then 2 more, and then you'll yarn over again and make your last double crochet into what was the second stitch of that part of the pattern. And again, if you need any help with any of this, my DMs are always open and I respond to comments as soon as I see them. So I will be there to help you whenever you need anything, just please reach out to me. Once you're done, your piece should look like this, and we're then going to go back to color switching to that secondary color that we used originally. After you make your color switch the same way you made it the first time, pull those yarn tails taut and chain 1 before turning your work. You're then going to want to do a half double crochet row once again to match the one that we started with at the beginning of the piece. From there, you're going to chain 50 times to make the necklace holder that will string across the top. You're then going to want to create a slip stitch into the top corner of the other side, so that way it is fastened extremely tight without your necklaces weighing anything down. Find that first half double crochet you made after your chain of 50, insert your hook, and create a slip stitch just by yarning over once and pulling it through both of those stitches on your hook. Once you're done with that, you're going to chain 2 to set up for step 14, which is creating the frills you saw in the beginning of the video. To do this, you're just going to double crochet 3 times into each and every single stitch on that top row. This will basically crowd the row so there's no straight line anymore, and it will create the actual ruffling effect that the frills give. For step 15, we're going to want to make those little borders for the panels on the sides. You'll do so by half double crocheting once into these thinner stitches and twice into the larger gap. Simply following the pattern of 1 half double crochet, then 2 half double crochets, it'll be extremely noticeable to see which point they're supposed to go into. Basically, it's the top of the double crochet stitches get 1 half double crochet, and then these big gaps in between the double crochets are where the 2 will go. At the end of that, you'll chain twice and make another row of the frills at what would be the bottom of your panel. This you're doing the exact same way before, where you yarned over and did your double crochets 3 times into each stitch. From there, just do the same thing to the other side of the panel with half double crochets going down. And for step 17, once you've finished, you'll slip stitch into the first top of the frill that you made, and then just simply chain once before cutting your work. You'll cut your yarn here, pull it straight through, and then weave in those 2 yarn tails that should be left over. Moving on to accessories, your step 1 will be to create the second pocket. Well, second for me, I've shown you how to make them both. But you'll start with a slip knot and then chain 14 times. You're basically just making mini panels here, making your little chain and then half double crocheting all the way across. So skip those 2 chains that you just made, going into the third one from your hook, and then making 12 half double crochets before you reach the end of the row. We're using half double crochets here to make them a little bit thicker for the stuff to fit in them. Once you're done, you're going to make 6 rows of this, chaining once in between each one. Then you'll just simply cut your yarn and leave this piece off to the side so you can make 2 of them later. We're just going to want to move on to the next part of this now, which is the actual bows that I showed at the beginning of the video. So to make the bows, they're very simple. You'll start with a slip knot, insert your hook, and just chain 50 total times before cutting your yarn and pulling through. You will then just want to even out the 2 tails that are left on your little yarn. That was a weird way to word it, but I mean simply that the ends of your yarn have those long tails, and you want to cut them shortly so that way they make these little aglet-like pieces. Make sure that they're even with one another, and when you're done, you're going to want to take these and tie it into actual bows. Basically, just creating the 2 bunny ears the same way you would tie your shoes. Once you're done, you're going to repeat this to make 2 bows, and then once you have 2 bows, you also want to make sure that you have both pockets. After you've created all 4 of these little accessories, you're going to want to start by lining the pockets up where you want them to go and threading a piece of yarn through your darning needle. We're going to create a running stitch, which if you've never done it before is the very simple act of going through one panel, through the other panel, and then coming out of the back of the other panel and the back of the original panel. Simply just going in and out and in and out all the way around your piece. And I'm keeping the video nice and slow here so you can get a really good view of what I'm doing. But again, if this point is a little bit confusing and you've never done it before, I have another video that I made last week where I showed you how to line bags that will help, and you can also just reach out to me whenever you need and I'll be able to help you. So again, you just want to simply create this little running stitch all the way around, starting at the left side of the panel and going all the way to the right side of the panel to finish. Then you'll insert your hook, or your darning needle, through the back of the piece and pulling everything through, doing the same for the other yarn tails that are left over, tying things together wherever you can, and just pulling them through to the back. Once you're done, I recommend making a few extra knots if you can, and then tying everything off so they don't hang out to the front of the piece. You'll then want to attach your bows, which we're going to do again with a threaded darning needle as opposed to the hook. Line up your bow where exactly you want it to go on the front of your panel. I'm doing it in the middle of the cable that we made and the left edge, and then as well as the right edge for the other side. After you thread your needle, you're going to want to go through the top and bottom points of each of those 2 loops of the bow that we made. We're doing it this way because it will allow me to tie the actual yarn in the back of the panel instead of in the front where you can see it and it'll look a little bit ugly. So pull your yarn through on both sides like this, then using your darning needle to go back through, like I'm showing you here, and then instead of pulling anything through, you're just going to take your darning needle out and reattach it to this piece of yarn here in the front. Pull it slightly more taut, and then go through the bottom of the other loop, when you'll then have both of the back pieces there and there. With both pieces of yarn in the back, you're simply just going to want to tie them together very tight and then tie a little knot before cutting all your yarn. From there, just attach the second panel of the pocket as well as the second bow, and with that being said, your piece is entirely done. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please check out my channel if you like this sort of thing and want to see more tutorials, and check out my Instagram for those written patterns as well as my Depop if you want to buy something. See you all next week.